On today's show, we'll react to how the Ottawa Senators lineup is shaking out now that preseason has come and gone.
And we'll get into what has to happen for this team to reach its potential this season.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today is Monday, October 6th, and Pilsy, oh boy, an eventful weekend for the Ottawa Senators, from a trade to a preseason finale, and then a lot of players on waivers yesterday.
Yeah, now, players on waivers doesn't necessarily mean they're already on their way to Belleville, as we saw some of those players remain with the big club at practice this morning. We'll get into the lines and all the players there later. But yeah, it's nice to get the win in Montreal against the Canadiens, 3-1 win. That's a much needed morale boost, even though it's meaningless games, however you want to word it. It's still good to get that confidence up. And Kurtis MacDermid, now an Ottawa Senator.
Yeah, let's end that storyline because it happened right after we recorded on Friday. We put out a quick short, and the gist of it is I don't care how good he is or maybe not good he is at playing the game of hockey. The fact of the matter is he's one of the NHL's top heavyweights. If you go to hockeyfights.com, they show the win-loss percentage. And again, it's voted by fans and people who watch those there. And he does very well. He wins 81% of his fights. And if you're curious how that compares with a guy like Zack MacEwen or a guy like Austin Watson, Senators' tough guys in the past, let's just say it's much better. MacEwen won 14% of his fights with Ottawa. Austin Watson was at 19%. MacDermid has 27 wins in 34 NHL fights.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear why this move was made. Zack MacEwen was not on the Ottawa Senators because of his goal-scoring skill, speed, or anything like that, although he does have moments where he can show flashes of good offense, especially in the AHL. But for people saying, well, we should have upgraded our scoring rather than toughness, that was not the need on the fourth line, and trading Zack MacEwen would not have upgraded your scoring. So I think that's kind of a moot point there. And Kurtis MacDermid, I think he's going to enjoy his time in Ottawa. I mean, he's from around the area. I saw some people say he's from Quebec City, but I saw he was born in Sable Beach. So
so he was born in Quebec City because his dad played for the Nordiques.
Oh, okay, so other way around. Okay,
yeah,
so,
but he's from Sable Beach, Sable. There you go.
So yeah,
is that in your neck of the woods?
Sort of, not quite, but in the general area. So I like this trade. Steve Staios must have listened to our episode because I said they need to upgrade on toughness, and that's an upgrade on toughness. Kurtis MacDermid, I really liked watching his hockey fights on hockeyfights.com, and that's the thing. If you're gonna have a tough guy enforcer that can't really play hockey that well, you better get one of the best ones in the league and the biggest, meanest guys, and that's what Kurtis MacDermid is. And Ross, I love versatility. I was big on the versatility train for Eric Brandstrom. Similar, Kurtis MacDermid, you want him to play lefty, he's got you. You want him to play left wing, he's got you. So you can slip him in the lineup in different ways here.
Well, there's a reason why he moved up to forward, right? Up front, you're taking up 1 out of 12 spots. On the back end, it's harder to hide when you're only one of 6.
And you're probably only playing 5 or 6 minutes on the fourth line, but lefty, you're creeping closer to 10 or 12.
Yeah, he played 39 games for New Jersey, where Ottawa got him from. And in those games, he averaged 5 minutes and 12 seconds a night. And I'd imagine most nights he averaged about 5 penalty minutes as well. Yeah. So he's not a guy that's going to play hockey a whole lot. His skating stride was noticeable on the game. We watched him play just under 10 minutes in the game against Montreal, but he's an investment protector. and it looks like he's going to make the team. Now, the one thing where you're like, oh, really interesting, is that he is signed for 1 extra year. So the Senators will have him this year and next. And he does make more money than Zack MacEwen's league minimum contract. He's at 1.15. However, contracts up to $1.15 million can be buried in the American Hockey League with no penalty. That's the minimum, or the maximum, I should say, that you don't get penalized against the cap. So it could be a waiver situation eventually, but the Senators do have a need for toughness and a deterrent in the lineup. So there you have it. Kurtis MacDermid is an Ottawa Senator. He will wear the illustrious number 23 for Ottawa that was last worn by Travis Hamonic. So it looks like MacDermid's going to take up one of the forward spots going into the regular season. We'll talk later on in the show about the final roster decisions, because as we alluded to, players went on waivers. Kaliev, Lycksell, both. They were at practice today. And there is precedent last year with Adam Gaudette where they put him on waivers and then just called him back up. Now, why would they do that? Well, you would then get 30 days where they do not have to be put on waivers. So what you're trying to do as an organization is get them through while the waiver wire pickup, you have to literally unscroll it. It rolls down the floor. There's so many players on it. And then if you can get them through that day, then all of a sudden you're now in a much more flexible situation for the entire month.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what players make it through waivers this afternoon, what players get claimed. I feel like there's always 1 or 2 guys that end up switching spots at this time of year, but for the most part, pretty much all the guys make it through.
Yeah, and it's also curious because there's a couple of claims recently, including a goaltender, Brandon Boosie, got claimed off of waivers from Florida, so they lose him. And it's also, speaking of goalies, Matt Sogard on waivers as well. So they made the decision. Not that it was a difficult one based on the performance that we saw from Maryland in last regular season, but there's also a couple, I would say, more reliable, interesting goalies who are also on waivers today, most notably Mikey DiPietro from the Boston Bruins, who lost his job to Eunice Corpusalo. So it's going to be interesting to see. That happens at 2 p.m. Eastern. So we will get you any information regarding the Senators waiver wire coming up when that news breaks at 2 o'clock. The names on waivers are Jan Yannick as well, Hayden Hodgson, Ole Lycksell, Arthur Kaliev, Lassie Thompson, and Mad Sogard. Stephen Halliday was sent to Belleville. He does not require waivers, so the Disher will be putting it up on the top line in Belleville. Quick thought on Stephen Halliday's camp.
I thought he showed all right. Like you saw the way he's able to use his hockey IQ in the offensive zone. Still, the skating needs some work, and then he did have that bad penalty where I forget what player he got up high. Was it OEL?
Yes.
Yeah, that was tough. And then he took a big hit up near the bench as well. So interesting to see him get involved in those types of interactions. But I thought overall he was all right. I think if Lars Eller wasn't able to come back, he would be the guy. But Lars Eller looked really good in his only preseason performance. Like, he had that empty net goal and had a couple nice offensive opportunities too. So I'm stoked that he's healthy and he's going to be the guy on the fourth line probably all year. So I think it's best for Halliday. I would rather have him playing top line minutes. I was going to say top 6, but he's the number 1 guy in Belleville rather than just playing 10 minutes a night in the NHL at this point.
So you mentioned Lars Eller. It was great to see Nick Jensen back on the ice.
That shocked me. Like, this whole offseason, I was kind of trying to word it like, we don't know what's going to happen with Nick Jensen, but let's just assume he's going to not be ready for the start of the regular season. And he shows up in the final preseason game. I'll be honest, Ross, part of me was hoping that he would take a little longer to recover. Let me word that properly. Obviously, don't want him to be injured longer, but take his time coming back so that we could see what the Ottawa Senators would do with that extra available right-hand shot spot. And maybe Yakimchuk would have gotten some time at the start of the year while Jensen is recovering. Because I'll maintain Jensen is an important part of this team. He elevates and complements Shabbat's game, but I want him at full health. So if he's not fully healthy, I still think it would be the better idea to let him get to that 100% health, because he was just not the same player when he had that day-to-day tag and he was missing practices and things like that, right? So I'd rather have fully healthy Jensen, because we have other options on the right side, but it seems to me that he is ready to go.
He looked a little sluggish early, as to be expected, took a couple hits, and then settled into the game. One hit in particular, Sammy Blais got him behind the net, and it felt like from that moment forward, it almost like, hey, I can take a hit.
Yeah,
I feel okay doing it. And then he started playing better. It's his point shot that was tipped by David Perron that ended up being the game-winning goal in this game. So good on Nick Jensen, man. That's a warrior mentality.
Oh, big time. Yeah, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Jensen. For him to battle through and play those games not at 100% health was very commendable, and he knew what was on the line. So stick taps to him there. But there's a lot of football players, Ross, that say like they want that first hit right away in the game to feel it, to shake the nerves off. So yeah, maybe that's something that Nick Jensen was experiencing as well. And you mentioned Sammy Blais. That was a player that was put on waivers by the Montreal Canadiens. That's a guy I was advocating for in the offseason. He throws a lot of hits. He would be a good fourth line guy, only at 775. I would probably prefer him as an extra player over Nick Cousins, but I don't think that's going to happen. He makes less money too and has a little bit more to his game than Cousins does at this age. And especially after that major injury Cousins had last year, he definitely looks a step slower.
Yes. Practice is underway. We know that the Ottawa Senators still have one more cut to make, likely on the back end, as the Senators still have 9 defensemen in training camp, including Carter Yakimchuk. But now that Nick Jensen has returned to his spot beside Thomas Chabot, what does it mean for the final decisions coming to the roster? We'll get that later on in the episode. Up next, though, how can Ottawa reach its potential this season? That's a conversation, and there are some other news and notes we need to get to. You thought Ottawa-Montreal was wild this preseason? Well, Ottawa's first 2 regular season opponents beat the wheels off each other twice. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Look, guys, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's your 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, that's when you end up leaving money on the table. Don't do that. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. Everyone's busy these days. So if you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is there for you. Let Monarch do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching one of those spreadsheets. Maximize your investments, increase your savings rates, easily review your finances with your partner or financial advisor, and keep a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks in this economy. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, Pilsy, it is time for our season preview. And we've been doing basically season previews all through the month of August and September. So you can go check out our catalog of episodes wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. We rank the top players at every position in the Atlantic Division. We get into the top players on Canadian teams and why we think this year is going to be a big step forward for the Ottawa Senators. Shout out to the everydayers here, making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Means a lot to Pilsy and I that we get to do this every single day. We are going in to season 6 covering the Ottawa Senators. We began the show in November of 2019 after a couple of years of making sense of the Sens, and we could not be more thankful that you choose us when you have so many options out there to spend your time. It really means a lot to us. So let's have a great season, and we hope it's one that ends in glory. I tweeted out this morning at Sens Central, what would be a best case scenario this season? And everybody said Stanley Cup. I love the enthusiasm.
I mean, you can't blame them. That's best case scenario, Ross. That's what you asked for. I still
had sleep in my eyes, Pillsy. It was a toughly worded question, so I had some time to think, have a coffee, and then I decided let's smarten up a little bit. So what has to happen for Ottawa to reach its potential this season? That's the way forward. What the certain players need to do? What does the team need to improve on? When you read that, what was the first thought that came to mind?
5-on-5 scoring is the first thing that came to mind, Ross. I think that's probably the top answer, I would assume, from Sens fans and probably even Sens management, coach, and players, as that was very apparent that was an area where they lacked, finishing in the bottom of the league. I believe, 28th overall. You got to find ways to score goals at even strength. Obviously, they showed what the power play units are going to look like today at practice. Maybe we can get into that later. Both those units look like they're going to be able to score, but you can't just rely on getting the man advantage, and you're not always going to score on the man advantage. So you have to find a way at even strength to be able to score goals, and that's going to come down to a few key players. I'm looking at Tim Stützle. Need him to shoot the puck more to score in 5-on-5. Zetterlund's got to find his path on this team. Brady Tkachuk needs to stay healthy this year. Not that I'm taking away from just missing 10 games, because usually he's pretty good injury-wise and health-wise. He plays almost every single game, but he's a guy that you can count on for 30-plus goals a year. That's big on 5-on-5 scoring. So there's so many different factors that can lead into having success 5-on-5, but I would say right away, Ross, that's the number one issue.
Yes, and I agree with that, but I'll go another direction, and that's the penalty kill. And we can talk about the formation all we want, but this team is built to play fast and ferocious. They want to be in your face. They want to piss you off. Look at the left wing depth. Tkachuk, Perron, Greg, Cousins. Those guys, just by the way they play, they're going to often take someone with them when they go off, but the Sens are going to be a penalized team this year. They're going to be in the top half of the league, I believe, in penalty minutes, whether a lot of those come from fights or just by the way they play. When you play fast, you draw a lot of penalties, but I think they're going to take their fair share. Last season, they were 19th in the league on the PK. That has to be in the top half. Top 10 would be best case scenario, but they cannot be below 15. That's the cutoff for me. They have to have an 80% or better penalty kill, and last year was at 77.7. So there has to be a dramatic improvement in the penalty kill. What did you think about Travis Green? Again, it wasn't his full lineup on Saturday night, but I found it really interesting, and they do have so much speed on their roster now. They've really improved that, I think, year over year, that they have more options of guys who can be disruptors on the penalty kill. We know the typical suspects will be there. Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg will kill penalties together. You'll have Claude Giroux killing penalties. I'm probably missing a few guys up front, but we saw on Saturday night, Pilsy, Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund killing penalties together, and they had a 2-on-1 chance the other way.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I've made my opinion pretty clear. I would like the penalty kill to be opportunities for those bottom six guys to really carve out a role for themselves. I'm talking about Amadio. I'm talking about Pinto and Gregg. I'm talking about Clevin. I really want to see those guys find a way to make an impact on the penalty kill. But I will say, and my question to you, Ross, was going to be, how much do you value shorthanded goals for? Because interestingly enough, the Ottawa Senators finished
top 10,
higher 14? Than that, tied for fourth in shorthanded goals for. The Ottawa Senators
top 10.
But I said better than that, though. You were right, but even better than that, Ross. They had 9 shorthanded goals for. The Rangers had 18, Panthers 12, Lightning 11, and then Sabres Hurricanes with 10. So, they were among the top teams in being able to score shorthanded. How much do you factor in being able to create offense while you're on the penalty kill versus being able to shut down other teams' power plays?
I would give up a few of those shorthanded goals if it meant allowing more than the shorthanded goals I'm giving up the other way.
Let me word it this way. Would you want the Ottawa Senators to finish top 10 in shorthanded goals for again? more or less than finishing top 15 in power or penalty kill percentage?
Less. I'd prefer to finish higher in the percentage of kills that you get. I think that it's critically important that they stay strong defensively first, and I think that you're then going to see some more 5-on-5 scoring as well. So I'm just go ahead.
What I will say though, Ross, is think of the major momentum swings when you score a shorthanded goal. Like that has a huge impact on the game, because not only obviously you're getting a goal on the score sheet, but you're demoralizing the other team, being like, man, we got a man advantage, and not only can we not score here, we're getting scored on. So that can have a big impact on how the game is affected, in my opinion.
Yes, but those are the two things that need to happen. The 5-on-5 scoring needs to be better, and the penalty kill needs to be better.
But I'll add a third one, Ross. The goaltending is going to be interesting here, because the Ottawa Senators have really claimed their stake that Levi Merlainen is ready to be the backup, because God forbid Linus Ullmark goes down. You're looking at a tandem of Levi Merlainen, Matt Sogard, or Levi Merlainen and Hunter Shepard, and that's scary. I know a lot of Sens fans were not fans of Anton Forsberg, but it's good to have a veteran guy like that has his experience in those scenarios. And I'm just hoping that Levi Merlainen can find a way to be around average in a 20-25 game span, because I don't think we can expect him to save the season again as a backup goalie when he's going to have to play a lot more games here. I'm hoping that can happen, obviously, and I'm hoping Linus Ullmark has no injuries and can play 50-plus games for the first time in his career. But the goaltending plays a huge role in how the Ottawa Senators are going to do this season.
Tomorrow on the show, we'll get into player projections. How many games should Linus Ullmark be attempting to play this season? How many goals should Tim Stützle be looking at? And what kind of added bonus can we expect from Jake Sanderson, who finished last season with 57 points? But today, it's all about the team goals. So we want to know in the comments, what do the Ottawa Senators need to do to reach their potential this season? It starts out tough in Florida against Tampa on Thursday, against the Panthers on Saturday. But will both those teams have their actual lineups in? Well, the NHL is figuring that out right now. We'll get to it next. And the lines from practice today, and what kind of final decisions we can expect from the Senators, as the full NHL roster must be complete by 5 p.m. today, Monday evening. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. If you haven't joined, no worries. Right now is a great time for new customers, because you can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. Ross loves using FanDuel, and you should too, because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, same game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Obviously, football is here, hockey's around the corner, but playoff baseball is electric, and I'm sure a lot of Canadians are jumping on the Jays bandwagon. And if you were, I'm sure you're looking at some green numbers in your account. So head to FanDuel. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. What are you waiting for? October is the ultimate sports time of the year. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, Pilsy, we will get to the Ottawa Senators' final roster decisions in a moment, but the Atlantic Division, man, this is going to be a bloodbath all season long. You've got the three that have been in the top three the last 5 years. And yes, the Boston Bruins may have slipped in there, but these have been the playoff teams for forever. Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs. Questions surround all of them. How will the Toronto Maple Leafs look without Mitch Marner for the first time in a decade? How will the Florida Panthers look without Alexander Barkov for the majority, if not entirety of the season? And Matthew Tkachuk is out to start the season. Tampa, How are they going to bounce back after first-round exits in back-to-back years with still that aging core that won them back-to-back cups in 2020 and 2021? The Senators, the Habs, they think that they're ready for prime time. How will it all shake out? Well, I can take a look at the Detroit Red Wings' final day of training camp, and stop me if you've heard this before. A very exciting top prospect is paired with Travis Hamonic. Did you see that? They've got Simon Edvinsson paired with a rotation of Travis Hamonic and Jacob Bernard-Docker.
Yeah, I mean, oh man. Hamonic should not be in anyone's starting NHL roster, in my opinion.
But if he is, Detroit is a great place for it.
Why is that?
Because I don't like them.
Okay, good. There you go. I thought you had some micro stat or something to push in there. I don't like them is a macro stat that I think holds a lot of weight, and I would agree with you. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that he beat out JBD for a job again. I mean, if you're JBD, you're like, how does this keep happening to me?
Take me back to Buffalo.
Yeah, seriously. But hey, the Red Wings are going to be an interesting team this year. I don't think they made enough moves to upgrade. In fact, I think they might have done the opposite. But if John Gibson can stay healthy and get back to his ways, that will be a boost for them.
Meanwhile, in Florida, it was a full-on gong show. We called Senators Habs the first of the two games an utter gong show. This is complete any way you slice it. The two teams played back-to-back games. There were 14 game misconducts, 460 combined penalty minutes within the two games, and the NHL is looking at potential discipline. There was some fines handed out to some NHL players. Gage Gonsalves, who had a good year last year for Tampa, he got a fine, and I'm sure there's more coming. We'll keep an eye on that closely as the Tampa Bay Lightning open the season. Is their first games against Ottawa as well? Yeah, they don't play Wednesday. They don't play Tuesday. So that's the opener for both teams. Florida, however, does play on Tuesday. They host the Chicago Blackhawks, so the Senators won't be subjected to the banner raiser. They also have a home game on Thursday against Philadelphia. So it's going to be Florida's third game of the season, and they could very well be 2-0 playing Chicago and Philly at home in their first two games. But that was wild, and you look at it was things spilling over from last year's playoffs. Hagel had the big hit on Tkachuk. They go after Hagel. Guerrier takes a cheap shot on him, and then they go, oh, yeah? Well, hashtag Sens abroad. Scott Sabourin's coming back up, and he had one thing on his mind. Let's get Aaron Ekblad, who had a greasy hit in the playoffs last year too, on Hagel, if I'm not mistaken. And he throws him down behind the net, and I thought that was a good hit. But then he says, hey, that's not good enough. I'm going to go full out, and I'm going to try to end you. So there was bad blood there. We'll see if it spills over the regular season. Not sure when those two teams play the first time, but we'll be watching to see if all of those players will be available for those games against the Ottawa Senators. More so Tampa, because I don't think anybody on Florida is getting a 3-game suspension.
Yeah, well, I mean, just as far as health-wise goes, Hagel is at Tampa Bay Lightning practice, and Ekblad was also at Florida Panthers practice. So at least those two guys aren't going to miss any time, seems like.
Yeah, November 15th, the first time those two teams play. You can mark that one down on the calendar after a pair of first-round matchups between the two teams in the postseason. What will the Ottawa Senators look like in the regular season? Well, practice has come and gone for the Sens, and we now know what I don't think we actually know what Travis Green's thinking just yet, but this is what he was thinking today at practice. Noteworthy that both Drake Batherson and Tyler Kleven missed practice. They have both been skating on their own since their respective injuries. I think it's lower body for Kleven, if I'm not mistaken. We know it's upper body for Drake Batherson. So the lineup is in flux, and I would go so far as saying the second and third lines have flipped with the way that they're loading up the wings next to Cousins and Pinto. The top line, noteworthy here too, Stützle with Tkachuk and Fabian Zetterlund looking more and more likely to get the first line of duty with the two big dogs. Yep. Then you've got Dylan Cousins with David Perron and Michael Amadio playing on that line. Shane Pinto between Ridley Gregg and Claude Giroux. The fourth line was Lars Eller with Nick Cousins and Kurtis MacDermid. And as we alluded to, Arthur Kaliev and Ole Lixell, got my Swedes mixed up there. Ole Lixell are the extras at practice. Let's focus on the forwards, then we'll move to the defense. Your thoughts on whether it's Amadio at right wing with Cousins, Zetterlund on the top line, MacDermid getting a role on the fourth line, it seems so far. What stands out to you?
Give me Zetterlund on the top line. This is what I want. I want him to be Timmy's shooter. I know we talked about we want Timmy to be his own shooter, but with his playmaking abilities, he needs a guy that could rip it like Zetterlund. And obviously Brady is a shooter as well, but I wouldn't necessarily call him a sniper. He's more of a shot volume net front presence type of guy. So having Zetterlund there excites me so much. I mean, in my opinion, this is what he was brought to this team to do and why they assigned him to that extension. Now, he very well could spend time on the second or even third line more than this top line this year, but I want to at least see this get a proper opportunity here. Nothing against Giroux, but I just think it's time to have a different option. And Giroux was, I mean, having Giroux and Brady as Timmy's wingers slows his pace of play down a little bit, and I don't think that's what he needs. So let's keep Fabian Zetterlund up there for a while, see how that goes.
I love that almost as much as I love this quote-unquote third line. I think that Giroux playing with Pinto and Gregg adds such an element of, hey, we're not just going to be a defensive line. We're a line that's going to be smart, hold pucks in the offensive zone. We're going to be creative, and we're going to get to the net. So I think that there's a bit of everything on this. And for a guy, me, who thinks Shane Pinto is going to explode offensively to the tune of 60-plus points, he needs to have a little more offense on both his wings. And I do think Ridley Gregg's going to take a step. He's been in the 30s the last couple of years in points. I think he needs to be in the mid-40s would be a great improvement for him as a top 9 player. Rather than calling him a bottom 6 player, I think you got to be over 40 points to be a top 9 player in the league. And I think that Giroux just gives them that element of offense that's missing. No disrespect to Amadio, who was an offensive weapon in March. That was the month of Michael was March. But you look at Claude Giroux and the depth that creates. Now, think about it like this, but put Drake Batherson where Michael Amadio is, and that is a beautiful top 9 to start the season.
Yep, agreed. I think that's likely what's going to happen. I think Perron is going to be on that second line. I don't think he ends up on the third line. I like Giroux playing with Pinto in any scenario in particular. I like those two together on the power play, but 5-on-5, I think they can work too. And that limits Giroux's workload a bit too. And Ross, talk about face-offs for that third line. Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, Claude Giroux, like all three of those guys are able to take faceoffs at a pretty decent rate. So that's going to be huge for them possessing the puck to start each shift if they're starting on a faceoff. So I like the way this lineup is shaping up. I don't think MacDermid is going to be an everyday NHLer. I think he's going to be a plug and play guy, likely the 13th forward here. Nick Cousins, I think, will get the edge there. But it's interesting that Lixell and Kaliev were two of the forwards that are still up here. I think that points to the fact that Drake Batherson might not be ready for one of the first 2 games.
Right, because it's not like all the players on waivers are still up. Jan Yannick is not at practice today, so clearly they wanted to get the numbers down, but still decisions to be made as we get closer and closer to 5 o'clock when the lineup has to be had. Now, the Senators, and we'll get to the blue line here because they still have 9 defensemen at camp. The Senators, they really only need to make 1 cut. You can carry 3 extra bodies. And again, depending on the health of Drake Batherson and Tyler Kleven, I'd imagine they could put them on the IR retroactive to when they were injured, which in both situations would mean that they could come off at any moment. And then a decision could be punted until they're ready to play that night. However, there is some intrigue on the blue line. The top 4 stays the same. No surprises. Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen. But this is where it gets interesting. Not the fact that Donovan Sabrango is the third lefty. I think that's expected with Tyler Kleven not at practice. But Nicholas Matinpalo is skating with Sabrango. And Spence looks like the extra man out. We're not doing this again. We're not doing Brandy 2.0 where he's undersized and he doesn't even get an opportunity. in my opinion, Jordan Spence has to play his way out of the lineup in the regular season. He was too good last year in Los Angeles, has more experience than Matt Palo, has more offensive capabilities than Matt Palo. Like, he's got to play opening night, right?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't bring Spence in to be the seventh defenseman, in my opinion, especially if Tyler Kleven isn't available. Now, Sebrango, left shot. Maybe that's why he seemingly has the edge here. But I would be shocked if Matin Palo is the guy that gets in over Spence. Again, no offense to Matin Palo, but I think you'd want someone with a little more NHL experience that can carry the puck up the ice if Sebrango is, in fact, that bottom pair left shot defenseman.
And then Carter Yakimchuk's still at camp. Do you think this is just, hey, let's have him practice with the big boys as long as possible before sending him down later today? Belleville, obviously, they had their 2 preseason games already, so he wasn't going to be in for those, and then they don't open the season until next Saturday. So it's not like if you keep him up right now for this extra practice that it's going to affect his start of the season with Belleville, but it feels like all signs are pointing towards that being the play ultimately.
Yeah, Ross, this is the compromise for both of us. You tossed out the idea that maybe Yak could stay with the NHL club just to be around the guys, practice with NHLers, get that taste of NHL life like we've seen them do with certain prospects in the past. And I said, no dice, I don't want that. I want him ready to play in Belleville when the regular season comes. So this is a good, happy medium where he's still going to get that taste of the NHL and have competition in practice up against elite players. But I do think it points to him going back down to Belleville and being ready to play game 1 of the regular season there.
Okay, let's see how it all shakes out. Again, follow us on Twitter at Sens Central. We'll make a quick short that will be on all social media platforms when the news comes out, whether it's waiver news, maybe a twofer today. We'll see what happens with waivers. Then we'll see what happens when the official lineup is sent to Central Registry. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is I have now changed my home opener plans. My good friend Laleem's Martian was flabbergasted that I didn't talk with him about what my plans were to get tickets together. Hand up, my bad. Should have checked the plan with the boys before. So Martian and I now have a pair of tickets together. That means I have my available solo ticket for a Sens fan that's looking to go to the game by themselves. It's in section 320. If you're interested or know someone that's interested in a solo ticket, DM me on Twitter for details and we can work something out.
Okay, sounds good. Final thoughts for me, Pillsy. Can you believe it's 5 years ago today that the Ottawa Senators' entire franchise changed? The day that the Ottawa Senators selected Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, and Ridley Gregg in the first round. What a day in Sens history.
And what a sports calendar for that. Like, we're talking about the NHL regular season starting in mere days. And 5 years ago, it was draft time. Wow.
Yep. COVID threw a wrench in absolutely everything, but the Senators made the most of it. And we posted on Sens Central again the way that the Sens did it with Alex Trebek. Rest in peace. What an absolute legend with the Jeopardy opening. Who is Tim Stützle? I'll never forget that as long as I live. We knew when the LA Kings selected Quentin Byfield that it was going to be Tim Stützle, but oh my goodness, the way they did it was incredible. And a side note, 5 years ago today, they brought back the 2D jersey as well.
That was huge too.
That was huge. And
remember they made us watch a full hour of CTV News teasing it the whole time and then finally did it. Oh, that was brutal.
They literally don't know how to unveil jerseys is what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah. We gotta have a talk with the Ottawa Senators about how to unveil jerseys.
They should just give them to us. We'll wear them on the pod.
I couldn't think of a better way. Amazing.
All right. Hey, let us know in the comments what you think the most important team success goals are this season. Like, how does Ottawa achieve success as a team? What has to happen on the ice when the puck drops on Thursday? We're continuing our previews. Player projections tomorrow, and maybe do we do player projections on Wednesday? Stay tuned to find out, because the season actually drops tomorrow, including an Atlantic Division matchup. Well, one team, it's going to be Florida hosting the Chicago Blackhawks, but we got to get our final predictions for the Atlantic Division and Eastern Conference. Maybe we'll do both tomorrow because we got a packed week to get to. We're fired up. The NHL season is back. How long has it been since May 1st? It's been 158 days, and we can smell Senators hockey coming back. We'll be with you every step of the way. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. Please leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.